The Bible also speaks of prepared for the future. I believe prophecy is given predominantly for two reasons. One is it's given to help us prepare for what is going to happen, or it helps us to change what the outcome would be. And so the loss of life could be significant unless we heed the warnings. I created a map of the future United States. This was a map that was a consolidation of the visions that I was receiving, and it represented what the United States would look like between 1998 and 2001. So the new West Coast will be in the area of Nebraska, down through Boulder and Denver, through this area is the new West Coast. And California has become a series of islands. Here, the Mississippi has expanded, the Great Lakes have merged. Good portions of New Jersey go underwater. Some of the changes occur abruptly, some of the changes give us warning signs. The worst places is wherever you are when something like this explodes.
What he once considered a burden, Scallion now calls a gift in disguise. Gordon Michael Scallion believes his prophecies will help mankind prepare for the future.
I believe prophecy is given predominantly for two reasons. One is it's given to help us prepare for what is going to happen, or it helps us to change what the outcome would be. And so the loss of life could be significant unless we heed the warnings.
Warning signs abound. A chorus of prophetic voices have predicted worldwide upheaval in the near future. But a few have taken action to ensure their survival. Paradise Valley, Montana, Big Sky country, land of cattle ranches in Yellowstone National Park, and home to 3,000 people prepared for global apocalypse. For the members of Church Universal and Triumphant, Royal Teton Ranch, Montana, is a physical and spiritual home. There they practice their New Age Christian faith and find refuge from the outside world. The church is led by Elizabeth Clare Prophet, teacher, author, and to her followers, divine messenger. Her gift of prophecy foretells a dark future.
It's a period of intensification in all of our lives. We see this in disturbances in the elements, the upheavals of tornado, of flood, tremendous storms, the Mississippi, the Missouri, sudden deaths. We see it in the last plagues. We see it in cancer and AIDS, in all kinds of incurable diseases. These are coming upon us.
Determined to survive, church members have followed Mrs. Prophet's injunction to construct dozens of bomb shelters beneath the rolling countryside.
Their main shelter complex is the largest and most complete fallout shelter in this country. They have everything in there that they feel they need to reestablish themselves on the earth after a major apocalypse has destroyed everything.
The bunkers range from family size to a massive structure designed to house 600 staff members. Each is stocked with a 7-year supply of food. They are equipped with everything from water wells and septic systems to shortwave radios and children's games.
You must be prepared for whatever kind of cataclysm or whatever kind of difficulty can arise, in which all of a sudden you may find that you don't have access to a store, so you can't get food. You don't have access to water. And we all need water and food to live on.
If there's ever a disruption of the civil order, in other words, the trucking breaks down, shipping breaks down, a lot of people are just simply not going to have food.
In recent years, Mrs. Prophet claims to have foretold the rise and fall of George Bush and the 1987 stock market crash.
I awakened at 3 and 4 in the morning the day that the stock market fell and ultimately fell 500 points. I saw all that ahead of time.
Let there be a place where children are yet carefree, and let that place be called the Royal Teton Ranch.
I feel very strongly that Elizabeth Clare Prophet is an authentic spiritual leader. The people I've met in Church Universal and Triumphant were either very high-quality people to begin with, or else they have been in some manner transformed by following those teachings and following that path.
The church is a highly diverse community with a shared belief in self-reliance. It produces and processes much of its own food. It runs its own school system. And the favored entertainment comes from a musical group comprised entirely of church members, the Paradise Players. The community also believes in self-preservation, and that means preparing for the worst.
We take a lot of care to make sure that we have hospitalization insurance, fire insurance, accident, theft, and all these other things. And yet, when we look at the planet as a whole, if you really look around, you'll see that there's war all over the place.
People have been schooled to think that if someone ever pushes the button, it's all over. I think that if there is a nuclear war, or if there's a rogue launch or something like that, obviously people are going to get killed. The problem that I see is that many more people will lose their lives than is necessary. And that, to me, that's a great tragedy.
Moses told us, choose life, not death. I cannot choose to allow myself to die when I know how to protect myself and my family from dying. So to me, shelters are the way to do that. But shelters are also in the eventuality of earth changes. Major changes may be coming upon this planet. And it might be that someday the only place to be safe just from earth changes is underground. We shouldn't plan on dying. We should accept life and know that we have to pass on our culture to posterity. So I have members on every continent, and they have centers, they have shelters. I have placed the repository of the entire body of our teachings on each of these continents and in many nations on microfiche. 500 years from now, or 1,000 years from now, when technology is back on its legs, we will find that these groups of people all over the world have evolved and developed and maintained what we had of a civilization by the end of the 20th century.
There followed fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. Trees were burnt up, and all green grass was burnt. And as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. A haunting prophecy passed down for nearly 2,000 years. This ancient document is a fascinating source of prophecy, which may point directly to our time, and is believed to predict a terrifying future called the apocalypse, or in other words, the end of time. Dr. Charles Strozier believes the signs are all around us. He is the author of Apocalypse, on the Psychology of Fundamentalism in America.
Revelation is a highly symbolic book. I would call it a myth of transformation that moves through violence. Violence is the regenerative mode. People have to be changed, cleansed. Human history has to be cleansed and ended in order for this new creation, this new recreation.
But before the new earth can be created, Revelation suggests the end of human history as we know it, the so-called end time. According to some, the Bible predicts a time of torture and tribulation, the conclusion of God's time, and the reign of the Antichrist.
Antichrist and the image of Antichrist is a very important part of the end time process, and first reveals himself as a messenger of peace. And it's a false peace that lulls the nations to sleep. And the message, the psychological message, is beware the peacemaker. It locates in the minds of a quarter of the population a deep fear of anything that moves toward peace. That matters in a democracy.
The Bible is said to predict that the Antichrist will rule for a period of 7 years and that 10 nations will unite under his leadership. Many Bible scholars interpret this as the nations of the European Common Market.
The key idea, though, is that Antichrist has been born, which is crucial to that unfolding of the end time process. Because after all, if he's born, that means we only have a generation for history to last.
According to some interpretations, Revelation tells us the Antichrist will force his followers to wear the so-called mark of the beast, associated with the number 666. Some Bible scholars believe these marks will separate the faithful from the damned. The Reverend Dr. R. L. Heimers interprets it this way.
There's no question that the Bible speaks about the rise in satanic worship at the end of time. There will be thousands of people that become Christians because they realize that this prophecy has been fulfilled and that we are under the Antichrist. During his last 3.5 years, the Antichrist becomes a horrible dictator, Hitler tried to do that. He'll do what Hitler tried to do.
As a further indication that the end may be near, the Bible warns us of deadly storms and floods. There shall be signs in the moon, the sun, and the stars, on an earth distress of nations. Reverend Hall interprets.
There will be an earthquake hit the central part of the United States and destroy perhaps more properties and people than any earthquake that we've ever had.
Before the end of the earth as we know it, some Christians believe that those who reject the Antichrist can be saved through the miracle of the rapture, by literally joining Jesus in the clouds of heaven.
I feel that the rapture of the church could well come in my lifetime. We've seen things moving very rapidly. Those that believe the Bible and think about these things, we see things in the newspaper every day that seem to point that the time is short.
Followers of the Bible prophecy believe the very short time that is left will end with a battle called Armageddon, an actual city east of Israel called Megiddo that will be completely destroyed. They say the Bible predicts it will take 7 months to bury the dead after the apocalyptic, possibly nuclear battle of Armageddon in the heart of the Mideast.
It takes an active imagination not to imagine at some time, at some point in one's life, those endings or that ending. When I say that ending, I mean the end to human existence. And that's what's so extraordinary. And that's what I think is new. It makes a difference that it is a real scientific possibility. The prophecies say it's all about to end. It seems without hope. And the only thing we can have is faith and commitment to grab some meaning for our lives now, even though we know in the end it'll all be destroyed.
The Bible's prophecies have long been used by scholars and religious leaders as warning signs for mankind. But beyond the predictions of the printed word, what actual occurrences point to such calamities? The answers can be found all around us. We are rapidly approaching the end of the millennium, and many prophets and prophecies point to the year 2000 as the termination of life on earth. Why have they chosen this moment in time? Are there current signs that might warn that the apocalypse may soon be upon us? It is a unique period in the history of the world. We have reached a time where population growth and the depletion of the planet's natural resources are producing profound environmental changes with catastrophic consequences. Devastating floods, earthquakes, droughts, tidal waves, hurricanes and tornadoes now occur with greater frequency and more devastating impact. How can these increasingly erratic weather extremes be explained? Kelly Quirk is a climate change specialist with Greenpeace.
Primarily because of fossil fuel combustion, we are loading tons and tons and tons of what are known as greenhouse gases, those gases that trap the sun's heat in the Earth's atmosphere, into the atmosphere, which is warming the planet. But what that is causing is a change in weather, is a destabilization of climate. And so what you have is the environmental impacts, which are increasing windstorms, threats to agriculture, increasing famine and drought, sea level rise, receding glaciers, the melting of Arctic ice. The potential dangers and the catastrophes are so terrifying to people that I think they want to believe it can't be happening.
Nostradamus, Edgar Cayce, and Gordon Michael Scallion all have been interpreted as foreseeing extreme weather as a part of the end of the world. Environmental changes not only affect the weather, they greatly impact health. The effect of the depletion of the ozone layer can be chillingly witnessed in Australia. Harry Darlington is with the Ozone Society.
In Australia alone, there are 140,000